They say you never truly know someone until you see them at their worst. Elena Vance learned that truth on a Tuesday night, standing in her fiancé's penthouse, staring at a scene that would shatter most women. But Elena didn't shatter. She crystallized into something far more dangerous. What happens when the perfect woman discovers she's been playing the wrong game all along? When rage becomes calculation and betrayal becomes the catalyst for transformation? Stay until the end to see how far revenge can take you. Hit that like button and drop your city in the comments. Let's see how far this story travels. Dubbed. The champagne was Dom Perignon, vintage 2008. Elena Vance knew because she'd been the one to order it. 3 cases delivered to Adrian Cole's penthouse that morning for the private celebration he'd mentioned in passing. Their engagement party was 2 weeks away, and Adrian had been working late every night on his senatorial campaign. She'd wanted to surprise him, to remind him that she understood the pressures he faced, that she would always be there to support him. The elevator to his penthouse required a key card. Elena had owned one for 6 months, ever since Adrian had proposed on the terrace of this very building, the Seattle skyline glittering behind them like a promise of everything they would become together. She'd spent those months perfecting herself, her wardrobe now filled with the elegant, conservative pieces befitting a senator's wife, her calendar coordinated with his political schedule, her opinions carefully calibrated to support without overshadowing. Elena Vance had been groomed for this role her entire life. Daughter of Jonathan Vance, whose boutique investment firm had built half the commercial real estate in the Pacific Northwest, she'd grown up understanding that marriages at her level weren't just about love. They were about legacy, power, strategic alliance. Adrian Cole, with his Kennedy-esque charm and genuine political talent, was perfect. Their wedding would be covered by Vanity Fair. Their children would attend the same prep schools as senators' children had for generations. She was 28 years old and everything was going exactly according to plan. The elevator doors opened directly into Adrian's penthouse. Elena stepped out, carrying the vintage champagne and wearing a smile that had taken years to perfect, warm but not desperate, confident but not threatening. The lights were dimmed, which was unusual. Adrian typically worked in his study with every lamp blazing, his intensity manifesting in an inability to tolerate shadows. "Adrian?" Her voice carried through the foyer. "I brought champagne. I thought we could—" She stopped. The sound reached her first, low, rhythmic, unmistakable. For a moment, her brain refused to process it, cataloging instead irrelevant details. The champagne bottle was cold against her palm. Her new Louboutins were pinching her left foot. The abstract painting in the hallway was slightly crooked. Then her body moved before her mind could catch up, carrying her forward through the living room toward his bedroom. The door was ajar. The sounds grew clearer, accompanied now by voices she recognized. Elena had always prided herself on her composure. In boarding school, when Madison Fletcher had spread vicious rumors about her, Elena had smiled and won homecoming queen. In college, when her father's firm had weathered a lawsuit that nearly destroyed them, Elena had maintained perfect grades and graduated summa cum laude. When Adrian's campaign manager had suggested she'd need to be less intelligent, more decorative during interviews, Elena had laughed graciously and bought new dresses. She pushed the door open. The scene should have destroyed her. Her fiancé, the man whose children she'd imagined, whose political career she'd restructured her life to support, was in bed with Vanessa Hartley. Not just any woman. Vanessa, who'd been her roommate at Yale. Vanessa, who was her maid of honor. Vanessa, who she'd trusted with every secret, every insecurity, every dream. Adrian saw her first. His face cycled through shock, guilt, and then, this was what she would remember later, calculation. Not devastation that he'd hurt her, not even panic at being caught. Calculation. He was already strategizing his response, determining how to minimize the damage to his campaign. "Elena." He grabbed a sheet, covering himself. "This isn't— let me explain." Vanessa had the decency to look horrified, tears already streaming down her face. "I'm so sorry. Oh God, Elena, I'm so sorry. It just happened. We didn't mean—" "How long?" Elena's voice was remarkably steady. The champagne bottle remained in her hand, still cold, condensation dripping onto his expensive hardwood floor. "Elena, we should talk about this rationally." Adrian was standing now, pulling on his pants. His campaign manager voice, the one he used to de-escalate angry donors. I know this looks bad, but if we could just... How long? He had the audacity to look annoyed at her insistence. 6 months. But Elena, you have to understand... 6 months. She did quick math. That meant it had started right after their engagement. While she'd been planning their wedding, selecting china patterns, meeting with his campaign strategist to discuss how to present their relationship to voters. While she'd been transforming herself into exactly what he needed. It doesn't mean anything, Adrian continued, his tone shifting to placating. Vanessa and I, it's just physical. You're the one I'm marrying. You're the one who fits with my future. My team agrees that our partnership is partnership. Elena repeated the word like she was tasting something foreign. Yes. You understand how this works, Elena. You've always understood. Marriage at our level isn't about passion. It's about building something together. You're perfect for my career, your family's connections, your poise, your intelligence. Vanessa is just... she's a distraction. It won't continue after the wedding. The champagne bottle was so cold it almost burned. Elena looked at it, then at Adrian, then at Vanessa, who was sobbing into her hands. Something inside her chest felt strange. Not breaking, that would imply there had been something whole to break. Instead, it was like watching ice form on a window, transforming the view into something crystalline and sharp. Get out, Adrian said to Vanessa, his voice sharp. Always thinking about damage control. We'll talk later. Elena and I need to discuss this privately. Vanessa scrambled for her clothes, still crying, still apologizing in a stream of meaningless words. Elena watched her, this woman who she'd called her best friend for 7 years. Watched her pull on the Prada dress that Elena had helped her pick out. Watched her avoid eye contact as she fled toward the elevator. When they were alone, Adrian's demeanor shifted again. Now he was all concern, reaching for her hands. Let's sit down. We can work through this. I know it's shocking, but if you think about it logically... Don't touch me. He pulled back, surprised by the ice in her voice. Elena, be reasonable. We have the engagement party in 2 weeks. The campaign is at a critical point. If this gets out, she repeated slowly, your career is finished. Exactly, which is why we need to handle this carefully. I made a mistake, I admit that. But we can move past this. We're adults. We understand that marriage is about more than fidelity. It's about mutual benefit. Your father's firm is expanding into commercial development. My campaign needs investors. Your family needs the political connections I can provide. We need each other. There it was. The truth she'd been too carefully trained to acknowledge. She wasn't a partner. She was a political asset. A well-bred, well-connected, sufficiently attractive asset that photographed well and knew when to be silent. Something in her chest went from cold to frozen, from frozen to absolute zero. You're right, she said quietly. Relief flooded his face. I knew you'd understand. You've always been so intelligent about these things. We'll set some ground rules going forward. After the election, once I'm established in the Senate, we can discuss a more flexible arrangement. Many political marriages work that way. It's civilized. Elena set the champagne bottle down on his dresser with careful precision. I do understand, Adrian. Probably for the first time, I understand perfectly. Good. Good. We'll get through this together. He was smiling now, confident again. He'd won. He always won. Now, I think it's best if you go home for tonight. Let's both cool down, and we can have lunch tomorrow to discuss how to move forward. Somewhere private. My campaign manager will want to be involved in... I'm not going to lunch with you, Adrian. His smile faltered. Elena, don't be dramatic. I know you're hurt, but I'm not hurt. She looked at him clearly, maybe for the first time seeing him without the filter of who she'd needed him to be. He wasn't handsome, not really. His charm was practiced, his sincerity manufactured. Even his political passion was carefully calculated for maximum effect. I'm not hurt because you can't hurt something you never actually had. What are you talking about? We've been together for 2 years. No, you've been building your career for 2 years, and I've been a prop in your production. But that's over now. His expression hardened. Over? Elena, think about what you're saying. If you walk away from this engagement, you're walking away from everything. Do you think anyone else at our level will want you after you've been publicly rejected? Do you know what the society pages will say? What my team will leak to the press about why we split? Ah! She smiled and it felt like her face was cracking. There's the real Adrian, not the passionate mistake maker, the strategist. I'm being honest with you. If you end this engagement, I will destroy your reputation. You'll be the unstable woman who couldn't handle the pressure of political life, the social climber who wasn't good enough for the inner circle. Your family's firm is already on shaky ground after that lawsuit last year. Do you think they can survive losing the connections my campaign provides? Do you think your father will forgive you for costing him everything he's built? Elena studied him. 2 years ago, these threats would have terrified her. 6 months ago, they would have kept her in line. Even 6 hours ago, she would have calculated the cost-benefit analysis and stayed. But something had changed. Something fundamental had broken free inside her, and it wasn't weak. It was pure crystalline rage that thought with perfect clarity. You're right about one thing, she said softly. If I walk away, there will be consequences. Relief flickered across his face again. Exactly. So let's be smart about, which is why I'm not walking away. I'm going to destroy you. Silence. Then Adrian laughed. Actually laughed. Destroy me? Elena, sweetheart, you don't have the resources or the connections to damage my campaign. You're a society princess who's never had to fight for anything in her life. What are you going to do? Tell some tabloids I had an affair? I'll deny it, Vanessa will deny it, and you'll look like a jilted woman making up stories. My team has already prepared responses for potential scandals like this. I'm sure they have. Elena picked up her purse. Good night, Adrian. Wait, where are you going? That's no longer your concern. She could feel his confusion as she walked toward the elevator. He'd expected tears, or submission, or at least a proper fight. The calculation, the calm destruction of his threats, it had thrown him off balance. Elena! He followed her, still shirtless, his political armor cracking. You can't just leave. We need to resolve this tonight. My campaign. The elevator doors opened. She stepped inside and turned to face him. For just a moment, she let him see it. The absolute zero rage that had replaced everything she used to be. Your campaign, she said quietly, is going to learn what it means to make an enemy of someone who has nothing left to lose. The doors closed on his shocked face. Elena drove. Not home to her Belltown apartment with its carefully curated furniture and its walls covered in photographs of her and Adrian at campaign events. Not to her parents' waterfront estate in Madison Park, where her mother would already be planning damage control and her father would be calculating financial implications. She drove south, through neighborhoods that grew progressively rougher, where the gleaming Seattle skyline gave way to industrial warehouses and shipping yards. She didn't have a destination. She just drove, her hands steady on the wheel, her mind crystalline with rage. At a red light, she caught her reflection in the rearview mirror. The woman looking back at her was a stranger. Perfect makeup, perfect hair, perfect diamond studs that Adrian had given her for their first anniversary. A perfectly constructed shell containing absolutely nothing real. The light turned green. She drove. 20 minutes later, she found herself in a parking lot outside a building that vibrated with bass-heavy music. The sign read Inferno, a club she'd never been to, in a neighborhood she'd been trained to avoid. The kind of place where dangerous people did dangerous things far from the sanitized world she'd inhabited. Elena parked her Mercedes between a motorcycle and a truck with tinted windows. Through her windshield, she could see the entrance, red neon, a line of people in leather and ink, a bouncer the size of a professional linebacker. What was she doing here? She didn't know. But the rage that had replaced her carefully controlled life was pulling her forward, whispering that the polished world of political ambitions and strategic marriages was a lie. If she wanted real power, the kind that didn't require permission or prettiness or playing by rules designed to keep her decorative and docile, she needed to step into a different game entirely. Elena got out of the car. The line parted for her automatically, her designer dress and expensive shoes incongruous enough to command attention. The bouncer looked her up and down, his expression unreadable. "Private club," he said. "Members only." "I'd like to speak to whoever's in charge." He laughed. "Lady, you lost?" "No." She met his eyes without flinching. "I'm exactly where I need to be." Something in her voice must have registered because his amusement faded. He pulled out a phone, spoke quietly into it, then looked at her again with new assessment. Wait here. 5 minutes passed. The bass from inside made her teeth vibrate. People in line stared at her, some curious, some hostile, all aware she didn't belong. Elena didn't move, didn't fidget, just stood with the same perfect posture she'd been taught at cotillion, her rage cold and patient. The bouncer's phone rang. He listened, his eyebrows rising slightly, then stepped aside. Second floor, office at the end of the hall. Don't touch anything. Don't talk to anyone. Elena walked inside. The club was exactly what she'd expected. Dark, crowded, dangerous. The kind of place where money changed hands under tables and nobody asked questions. She ignored the stairs as she climbed the stairs, her heels clicking against metal steps. The hallway on the second floor was quieter, lined with doors that likely led to private rooms for activities she didn't want to imagine. At the end, light spilled from an open office. She walked toward it. The office was surprisingly sophisticated. Leather furniture, expensive artwork, a wall of monitors showing security feeds from throughout the club. And behind a massive desk sat a man who made her breath catch. He was maybe 35, dressed in a black suit that had clearly been custom-tailored to accommodate broad shoulders and a powerful frame. Dark hair, darker eyes, and a face that was too hard to be handsome, but compelling in a way that made handsomeness irrelevant. He radiated control, the kind that didn't need to be announced or enforced because it was simply absolute. When he looked up from the papers he'd been reviewing, his gaze locked onto her with an intensity that should have been terrifying. Elena felt nothing but relief. Here, finally, was something real. Ms. Vance? His voice was deep, touched with an accent she couldn't place. I've been expecting someone like you for a while, though I admit I didn't expect you tonight. You know who I am. Everyone knows who you are. Senator Cole's beautiful fiancé, the perfect political wife. He leaned back in his chair. Though I'm guessing something's changed since the engagement photos. How did you? You're in my club, wearing a dress that costs more than most people's cars, looking at me like you want to burn the world down. It doesn't take a genius to know you're either running from something or planning to destroy it. He smiled, and it was sharp enough to cut. I'm Dominic Moretti, and I think we might be able to help each other. Elena's heart was pounding. Every instinct trained into her by years of careful socialization was screaming that she should leave, that this man was dangerous, that she was way out of her depth. But the rage inside her was louder. I want to destroy Adrian Cole, she said clearly. His campaign, his reputation, everything he's built. I want him to lose so completely that he never recovers. Dominic's smile widened. That's quite an ambition for a senator's fiancé. Ex-fiancé, as of 2 hours ago. Interesting. He stood, and she realized he was tall, easily 6'3", with a presence that filled the room. He walked to a bar cart and poured 2 glasses of something amber. Tell me why I should help you commit political assassination when Senator Cole's campaigns have been very useful to certain business interests in this city. Because I know things, Elena said. I know where the money comes from. I know which donors expect which favors. I know about the offshore accounts and the backroom deals and exactly how his campaign has been skirting election law for the past 18 months. That's good leverage, but it's not enough to interest me. What would be enough? Dominic handed her a glass and studied her face with an intensity that felt like being dissected. What are you willing to trade for your revenge, Miss Vance? Because everything has a price, and I don't do favors for strangers, no matter how beautiful or angry they are. Elena took a sip of the whiskey. It burned going down, but the burn felt cleansing. What do you want? Adrian Cole has been very careful about which criminal elements he associates with. He's taken money from the Russians, the Italians, even some of the Mexican cartels. But he's kept his distance from my organization, despite multiple attempts at contact. That's left me at a disadvantage in certain negotiations. You want access to him. I want information, names, accounts, connections, everything you know about his network. In exchange, I'll give you the tools to destroy him. That's all? Elena had expected something darker, more visceral. Dominic's smile turned almost gentle. Ms. Vance, information is power. Everything else, violence, threats, drama, that's just theater. If you really want to destroy someone, you dismantle them piece by piece until they have nothing left to stand on. You'll teach me how? I'll provide the resources, the destruction, that you'll do yourself. I don't create monsters, Ms. Vance. I just help them bloom. Elena looked into her glass, seeing her warped reflection in the amber liquid. 24 hours ago, she'd been planning seating charts for an engagement party. Now she was standing in a crime boss's office, negotiating terms for revenge. She should be terrified, should be running back to her safe, sanitized world. Instead, she felt alive for the first time in years. I'll need access to his files, she said. Everything I gave you, I'll need copies, evidence. Done. And protection. When this starts, he'll retaliate. His campaign manager has connections to some very unpleasant people. You'll be untouchable. Then we have a deal. Elena extended her hand. Dominic took it, his grip firm and warm. One more thing, Ms. Vance. What? Once you start down this path, you can't go back. Your old life, the society parties, the political connections, the carefully constructed reputation, all of that dies the moment you choose this. Are you prepared for that? Elena thought of Adrian's face when he'd calculated how to use her. Thought of Vanessa's tears that meant nothing. Thought of a lifetime spent being perfect and polished and ultimately powerless. My old life died the moment I walked into that bedroom, she said quietly. This is just me burying the body. Dominic laughed, a real laugh, rich with genuine amusement. I think I'm going to enjoy working with you, Ms. Vance. Elena, she corrected. If we're going to destroy my ex-fiancé together, you should probably use my first name. Elena, then. He raised his glass. To revenge. She clinked her glass against his. To revolution. They drank, and somewhere in the club below, the music shifted to something darker, something that sounded like a promise and a threat wrapped together. Elena Vance had entered the building, but the woman who would walk out was someone else entirely, someone dangerous, someone free, someone who was done playing by rules that had been designed to keep her small. The game had changed, and she was going to win. The whiskey burned less with the second glass. Elena sat across from Dominic Moretti in his office while the club pulsed beneath them and felt the last fragments of her old self dissolving like sugar in acid. Tell me about Adrian's financial structure, Dominic said, refilling her glass. Start with the campaign accounts. Elena didn't hesitate. The information poured out of her with surgical precision. Account numbers she'd memorized while reviewing wedding expenses that Adrian had insisted come from campaign funds. Donor names she'd smiled at during fundraising dinners, while mentally cataloging their questionable business practices. Offshore transfers she'd noticed in documents left carelessly on his desk. She'd been trained her entire life to be observant, to remember details, to be the perfect hostess who never forgot a name or a preference. Adrian had thought those skills made her useful. He hadn't realized they made her dangerous. Dominic listened without interrupting, occasionally making notes on a tablet. When she finished, he looked at her with something that might have been respect. You have a remarkable memory. I was taught to pay attention. My mother said a political wife's most valuable asset is knowing everything while appearing to know nothing. Your mother sounds like an interesting woman. My mother, Elena said carefully, spent 40 years perfecting the art of strategic ignorance. She knew my father had mistresses. She knew his business deals weren't always legal. She knew, and she smiled, and she played her role perfectly. She took another sip of whiskey. I will not be my mother. No, Dominic agreed. I don't think you will. He stood and walked to one of the monitors, tapping keys until financial documents filled the screen. Adrian's been careful, but not careful enough. Most of his illegal funding comes through shell corporations, 3 layers deep usually. The money originates from organizations that would destroy his campaign if publicly connected to him. The Russian Metals Company. Among others, he's also taking money from a pharmaceutical lobby that's currently under federal investigation, and a real estate consortium that I know for a fact is laundering cartel money. Dominic glanced at her. The question is how to expose it without making it look like a political hit job. If it appears partisan, his team will spin it as opposition research, and his base will rally around him. Elena studied the screen, her mind working through possibilities. What if it doesn't look political at all? What if it looks like internal corruption? Someone from his own campaign turning on him? You're thinking of Vanessa. She's weak, emotional. Right now she's probably drowning in guilt about the affair. Elena's voice was clinical, detached. If someone approached her with evidence that Adrian was using campaign funds illegally, convinced her she could be implicated, she'd cooperate to save herself. Dominic smiled. That's cold. That's strategic. How would you convince her? She's your best friend. She'll be suspicious if you suddenly contact her after tonight. Elena considered this. Not me. Someone else. Someone who seems legitimate. A journalist, maybe, or a concerned campaign staffer who's developed a conscience. I can arrange that. Dominic returned to his desk. But exposure alone won't destroy him. Politicians survive scandals all the time. He'll deny, deflect, blame subordinates. His family has enough money to weather a campaign finance violation. Then we need something more personal, something that damages him beyond politics. What did you have in mind? Elena thought of Adrian's face when he'd calculated how to use her, the casual cruelty of his threats, the certainty that she would stay because she had no other options. Adrian's entire brand is built on family values. The devoted son, the faithful partner, the man who represents traditional morality. That's his appeal to conservative voters. If we expose the affair, make it impossible to deny, and do it in a way that makes him look not just unfaithful, but calculating about it, his base abandons him, Dominic finished. Religious conservatives don't forgive that kind of hypocrisy. Especially if there's evidence he planned to continue the affair after marriage, that he sees infidelity as a privilege of powerful men. Elena's voice hardened. He told me tonight that many political marriages work with flexible arrangements, that it's civilized. Did he record this conversation? No, but I did. Dominic's eyebrows rose. You recorded it? Elena pulled her phone from her purse. Voice memo. I started it when I walked into the bedroom. Everything is here. The affair, his threats, his admission that our marriage was just political strategy. You're more prepared than I gave you credit for. I wasn't prepared. I was just angry enough to think clearly. She set the phone on his desk. Can you use this? Absolutely, but first we need to establish your position. If you release this now, you're a scorned woman making accusations. People will sympathize, but they won't take you seriously. We need you to be something else, someone with credibility, with power in your own right. How do I get that power? Dominic leaned back in his chair, studying her. What does your family's firm do exactly? Commercial real estate development. My father builds office complexes, mixed-use developments. He's been trying to expand into hospitality, hotels, resorts, but he doesn't have the capital or the connections. And Adrian promised to help with that expansion, political connections, favorable zoning, tax incentives. Yes, Elena saw where this was going. If I break the engagement, my father loses those connections. He'll never forgive me. Unless you replace them with something better. Dominic pulled up another screen. Property listings, development proposals, financial projections. I have significant investments in hospitality. Hotels in Seattle, Portland, San Francisco. I'm always looking for experienced developers to partner with on expansion projects. You'd work with my father? If you convinced him it was worth more than Adrian's promises, yes. The projects are legitimate. Well, mostly legitimate. The revenue streams are clean. Your father would make considerably more money than Adrian was offering, and he wouldn't have to compromise his business practices to get it. Elena processed this. You're offering to buy my family's loyalty. I'm offering to give them a better option. What they do with it is up to them. Dominic's expression turned serious. But Elena, understand what this means. If your family takes my money, they're connected to me. My business interests aren't all legal. Some of my associates are dangerous. Your father will know this, and he'll have to make a choice. Clean money from political connections or more money from connections that exist in the shadows. He'll take your money, Elena said without hesitation. My father's business is already on the edge after that lawsuit. He needs capital more than he needs respectability. You sound very certain. I've watched him my entire life. He talks about legacy and reputation, but he worships profit. If you offer him a deal that's genuinely lucrative, he won't ask too many questions about where the money comes from. Dominic nodded slowly. Then tomorrow, you'll set up a meeting. Tell your father you're ending the engagement and you have alternative business opportunities to discuss. I'll have my financial people prepare a proposal that's too good to refuse. And my mother? What about her? Elena thought of her mother's carefully maintained composure, her strategic ignorance, her lifetime spent supporting a man who treated her like an accessory. She'll be furious. The engagement party is in 2 weeks. She's already sent invitations to 300 people. This will humiliate her. Can you handle that? I don't have a choice. Elena finished her whiskey. But she'll retaliate. My mother's weapon isn't money or politics. It's social connections. She'll make sure I'm blacklisted from every charity board, every society event, every circle that matters in Seattle's elite. Does that bother you? Elena looked around the office. The security monitors showing dangerous people doing dangerous things. The expensive art that had probably been purchased with money from illegal enterprises. The man across from her who commanded an empire built on breaking rules she'd been taught were sacred. No, she said quietly. It doesn't bother me at all. Dominic's smile was approving. Good, because once we start this, there's no going back. Adrian will fight dirty. He'll use every connection, every threat, every weapon in his arsenal. Are you prepared for that? I'm prepared to fight dirtier. Then we should discuss terms. Elena tensed. What kind of terms? You're giving me valuable information about Adrian's network, information I can use for my own purposes. In exchange, I'm giving you resources to destroy him and protection from retaliation. But I need to know you're committed to this, that you won't have second thoughts when things get difficult. I won't. Prove it. Elena met his eyes. How? Tomorrow night, there's a fundraising gala for Adrian's campaign. 500 donors, all the political elite in the Pacific Northwest. You're expected to attend as his fiancé. Dominic leaned forward. I want you to go. I want you to smile and play your role perfectly. And I want you to plant something for me. Plant what? He pulled a small USB drive from his desk drawer. This contains financial records, not the ones you told me about, but others I've acquired through my own channels. Evidence of money laundering, illegal contributions, connections to organized crime, nothing that traces back to you or your information. If this drive is found in Adrian's office after an anonymous tip to the right journalist, it will trigger a federal investigation. You want me to break into his office? I want you to put this in his desk during the gala. You have access. You know his security codes. No one will question the senator's fiancé being in his private office. Elena took the drive, its weight insignificant in her palm. If I'm caught, you won't be. I'll have someone monitoring security feeds. They'll tell you exactly when to move, which cameras to avoid. You'll be in and out in 2 minutes. And if something goes wrong, then you'll learn very quickly whether you have the nerve for this kind of war. Dominic's voice was hard. I don't work with people who can't handle risk, Elena. If you want my help destroying Adrian, you need to prove you can operate in my world. Elena looked at the USB drive. Everything she'd been taught screamed that this was insane. She was a society princess, not a spy. She didn't break into offices or plant evidence or commit federal crimes. But she also wasn't the person who'd entered that penthouse tonight expecting champagne and romance. That person was dead. This new version, forged in betrayal and rage, was something else entirely. I'll do it, she said. Good. Dominic stood and extended his hand. Welcome to the game, Elena. She shook his hand, feeling the calluses on his palm, the strength in his grip. What happens after I plant the drive? We wait. Let the investigation develop naturally. While that's happening, we work on exposing the affair. We turn Vanessa into a liability he can't contain. We systematically dismantle every pillar holding up his campaign until there's nothing left. How long will that take? 3 months, maybe 4. Destruction is an art, not a sprint. Dominic released her hand. Can you be patient? Elena thought of all the years she'd been patient. Patient while Adrian built his career. Patient while her mother molded her into the perfect daughter. Patient while everyone around her treated her like a beautiful, useful object. I can be patient, she said, as long as I know he's going to fall. He'll fall. They always do. Dominic walked her toward the door. One more thing. Don't contact me directly. I'll have someone reach out to you tomorrow to coordinate your father's meeting and the gala logistics. Use encrypted messaging only. Adrian's campaign manager is paranoid enough to have your phone monitored. Understood. And Elena? He caught her arm gently as she reached the door. Be careful. What we're doing, it's not just destroying a political campaign. We're dismantling a man's entire life. When people like Adrian realize they're losing, they become unpredictable, dangerous. So do I, Elena said softly. Dominic laughed. Yes, I'm starting to see that. She left the office and walked back through the club, ignoring the stares, the music, the danger that seemed to pulse in the air itself. When she reached her car, she sat in the driver's seat for a long moment, the USB drive burning a hole in her purse. What was she becoming? The question didn't frighten her as much as it should have. She started the car and drove home through streets that looked different now, like she was seeing the city clearly for the first time. The polished surface, the gleaming skyscrapers, the expensive restaurants, the carefully maintained facades were just that. Facades. Beneath them ran currents of power and money and violence that her old life had taught her to ignore. But she wasn't ignoring anything anymore. When Elena reached her apartment, she found Vanessa sitting outside her door, eyes red from crying. Elena, please, I need to talk to you. Every instinct screamed to slam the door in her face. But Dominic's words echoed in her mind, strategic, patient, playing the long game. Come in, Elena said quietly. Vanessa followed her inside, wringing her hands. I know you hate me. I hate myself. What I did, what we did. There's no excuse. I betrayed you in the worst possible way. Elena poured herself water, not offering Vanessa anything. How long have you been sleeping with my fiancé, Vanessa? The truth this time. 6 months. It started at your engagement party, actually. We were both drunk, and it just happened. I tried to stop. I swear I tried. But Adrian, he's so manipulative, controlling, good at making people feel like they don't have a choice. Vanessa looked surprised. Yes, exactly. He said you didn't really love him anyway, that your engagement was just political, that you understood it was a business arrangement. And you believed him? I wanted to believe him, because if I didn't, then I was just a terrible person who was hurting her best friend for no reason. Fresh tears spilled down Vanessa's face. I'm so sorry, Elena. I know it doesn't mean anything, but I'm so sorry. Elena studied her former best friend. Vanessa had always been weak, beautiful, charming, but fundamentally unable to stand up for herself. The kind of person who drifted through life letting stronger personalities make her decisions, which made her perfect for what Elena needed. Does Adrian know you're here? Elena asked. No, he told me to stay away from you, said it would complicate things. Of course he did. Elena sat down across from Vanessa. What do you want, Vanessa? Forgiveness? Absolution? I want to make it right somehow. I know I can't, but I want to try. Do you love him? Vanessa's face crumpled. I don't know. Maybe? He makes me feel important when we're together, like I matter. But then he talks about his campaign and his future, and I realize I'm just temporary. A distraction, like he told you. So you're both being used. Elena let the words hang between them. Adrian doesn't love either of us. We're both just pieces on his political chessboard. I'm starting to see that. Vanessa wiped her eyes. What are you going to do? Are you still going to marry him? Elena made a decision. No, the engagement is over. Oh. Vanessa looked simultaneously relieved and guilty. Are you going to tell people why? Not yet. I need to handle this carefully. Adrian's threatening to destroy my reputation if I make this public. That's what he told you? That's horrible. That's politics. Elena leaned forward. Vanessa, I need you to do something for me. Anything. I mean it, whatever you need. I need you to keep seeing Adrian. Act like nothing's changed between you two. Don't tell him about this conversation. Vanessa looked confused. Why? Because I'm going to end this engagement in a way that protects both of us. But I need time to set things up. And I need Adrian to think everything is fine. If he suspects you've talked to me, he'll cut you off and we'll both be vulnerable. I don't understand. How does me continuing the affair help you? Trust me, Elena said, injecting just enough vulnerability into her voice to make it believable. I have a plan, but I need you to play along for a little while longer. Can you do that? Vanessa hesitated, then nodded. Okay, if you think it will help. It will. And Vanessa? Elena touched her hand gently. I don't forgive you, not yet. Maybe not ever, but I understand that Adrian manipulated both of us. When this is over, we'll figure out what our friendship looks like, if it can exist at all. Thank you. Vanessa hugged her, and Elena let her, feeling nothing but cold calculation. I'll do whatever you need, I promise. After Vanessa left, Elena stood in her apartment and felt the full weight of what she was becoming. She'd just manipulated her best friend, former best friend, with practiced ease, had lied while making it sound like truth, had weaponized vulnerability. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Tomorrow, 2 p.m., Waterfront Park, North Entrance. Come alone. Dominic's contact already. Fast. Elena deleted the message and went to her bedroom. The dress she'd planned to wear to the engagement party hung in her closet. White silk, elegant, demure. The perfect senator's wife. She pulled it out and threw it in the trash. Then she opened her laptop and began researching. Security systems in Adrian's campaign headquarters. Guard schedules. Camera placements. She had 48 hours to become an expert in breaking into the building where she'd spent months attending strategy meetings. The irony wasn't lost on her. At 2 a.m, her father called. Elena, what the hell is going on? Adrian just contacted me. He says you two had a disagreement, that you're being emotional. He wants me to talk sense into you. I'm ending the engagement, Dad. Silence. Then, the hell you are. Do you have any idea how much I've invested in this connection? The deals I've set up based on his political future? I know exactly what you've invested, and I have something better to offer. Better than a senator? Elena, you're being hysterical. I'm being strategic. She kept her voice level. Meet me tomorrow. 2:30 p.m., your office. I have a business proposal that will make Adrian's promises look like pocket change. What kind of proposal? The kind that comes with actual money instead of political favors that may never materialize. The kind that doesn't require me to marry a man who's been cheating on me for 6 months. Another pause. He's been cheating? With Vanessa, in his bed. I walked in on them tonight. Her father's anger shifted from her to Adrian. Good. Jonathan Vance could forgive a lot of things, but public humiliation wasn't one of them. That son of a bitch. After everything I've done for his campaign, which is why you should listen to my proposal tomorrow. Someone with significant hospitality investments wants to discuss partnership opportunities. Real money, Dad, not promises. Who? Tomorrow, 2:30. Don't tell Mom yet. She hung up before he could argue. At 3 a.m., Elena stood in front of her bathroom mirror and barely recognized herself. Her makeup was gone, her carefully styled hair falling loose, her eyes harder than they'd been that morning. 24 hours ago, she'd been planning a wedding. Now she was planning a war. The woman in the mirror smiled, and it was sharp enough to draw blood. Outside her window, Seattle glittered like it always had. Beautiful, cold, and utterly indifferent to the small dramas of people like her. But Elena wasn't small anymore. She was becoming something else, something dangerous and free, and completely unwilling to play by rules that had been designed to keep her powerless. Dominic had asked if she could handle risk. She was about to show him she could handle anything. The game had begun, and Elena Vance was done being a piece on someone else's board. It was time to flip the table entirely. The morning sun cut through Elena's apartment windows like an accusation. She'd slept 2 hours, maybe 3, her mind running through scenarios and contingencies until exhaustion finally claimed her. Now, standing in her kitchen with coffee that tasted like ash, she felt the weight of what she'd set in motion. Her phone showed 17 missed calls from her mother. Elena ignored them all. At exactly 2 p.m., she arrived at Waterfront Park. The Seattle skyline stretched behind her, gleaming and indifferent. A man in his 30s approached, dressed like any other tech worker in the city. Jeans, casual jacket, forgettable. Ms. Vance, walk with me. They moved along the pier, surrounded by tourists and joggers. Anyone watching would see 2 people having a normal conversation. Tomorrow night's gala, he said without preamble. Security will be tight, but predictable. Adrian's office is on the third floor, southeast corner. You'll enter through the main hall, take the staff elevator at 9:45. Guards change shifts at 9:30, gives you a 15-minute window before the new team settles in. Cameras? 3 in the hallway leading to his office. We'll loop the feeds. You'll have 4 minutes from when you enter the corridor until someone notices the loop. Get in, plant the drive in his bottom desk drawer under the files. Get out. Elena's heart hammered against her ribs. What if someone sees me going to his office? You're his fiancé. You have legitimate reasons to be there. Getting your wrap, checking your makeup, needing a moment alone. Play it natural. He handed her a phone. Encrypted. Use this to communicate with us. Your regular phone is compromised. Adrian's campaign manager installed monitoring software 3 weeks ago. What? They've been reading your texts, tracking your location, recording calls. Standard political paranoia. He glanced at her. You didn't know? Elena felt ice slide down her spine. No. Then it's good you didn't say anything incriminating. Keep your regular phone for normal activities. Use this one for anything real. He checked his watch. Your father's meeting is at 2:30? Yes. Dominic will be there at 3. The proposal is solid, $20 million in development capital, partnership on 3 hotel projects, revenue projections that will make your father forget Adrian Cole ever existed. And if my father asks about Dominic's background, he'll get the sanitized version. Legitimate businessman, hospitality investments, some connections to old money families in the Northeast. All technically true. What your father chooses to investigate beyond that is his business. They'd reached the end of the pier. The man turned to face her fully for the first time. Last chance to back out, Ms. Vance. After tomorrow night, there's no going back. You'll have committed a federal crime. Dominic will own a piece of you, whether you like it or not. Elena looked out at the water, gray and choppy under clouded skies. He already does. The moment I walked into that club, I made my choice. Some people make choices they regret. I won't. She met his eyes. Tell Dominic I'll be ready tomorrow night. The man nodded and walked away, disappearing into the crowd like he'd never existed. Elena stood alone on the pier, the encrypted phone heavy in her pocket, and wondered who she was becoming. Then she stopped wondering and started preparing. Her father's office occupied the top floor of a building in Pioneer Square, all glass and steel and carefully calculated success. Jonathan Vance sat behind his desk like a king on a throne, his expression thunderous. Sit down, Elena. She sat, noting the documents spread across his desk. Financial statements, loan agreements, partnership contracts. Her father was a man who lived and died by numbers. I spoke to Adrian this morning, he began. He says you're having cold feet, pre-wedding jitters. He's willing to overlook your behavior last night if you apologize, and I'm not apologizing, and I'm not marrying him. Her father's face darkened. Do you have any comprehension of what you're throwing away? The connections? The opportunities to watch my husband cheat on me while I smile for cameras? The connections that require me to be decorative and silent? Elena leaned forward. Dad, Adrian has been sleeping with Vanessa for 6 months. I have proof. He admitted it to my face and told me it would continue after our wedding because that's how political marriages work. Jonathan Vance's hands tightened on his desk. That bastard. Yes, but more importantly, his campaign is corrupt. Illegal funding, offshore accounts, connections to organizations that would destroy him if exposed. When it comes out, and it will come out, everyone connected to him will be investigated, including you. How do you know this? Because I paid attention during all those strategy meetings you sent me to. I smiled and looked pretty and memorized every detail. She pulled out her regular phone and played the recording from Adrian's penthouse. His admission of the affair, his threats, his casual dismissal of their relationship as political strategy. Her father listened, his expression growing darker with each word. He threatened to destroy your reputation, Jonathan said quietly when it finished. Our firm. Yes, which is why I'm ending this engagement and why you need to cut all ties with his campaign immediately. That will cost me millions in projected revenue. Deals I've structured around his political future will be replaced with something better. Elena checked her watch. I have someone coming here at 3. He has a proposal for you. Real money, not political promises. Who? Before she could answer, her father's assistant knocked and entered. "Mr. Vance, there's a Dominic Moretti here to see you. He says he has a 3 o'clock appointment." Jonathan looked at Elena, who nodded. "Send him in." Dominic entered the office like he owned it, his presence immediately dominating the space. He wore a different suit than last night, charcoal gray, impeccably tailored, and moved with the confidence of a man who knew exactly how much power he held. "Mr. Vance, thank you for seeing me." Dominic shook her father's hand, then acknowledged Elena with a slight nod. "Ms. Vance?" "Mr. Moretti?" Elena kept her voice professional, betraying nothing of their previous meeting. "My daughter says you have a proposal," Jonathan said, gesturing to the chairs across from his desk. Dominic sat, pulling out a tablet. "I do. I own significant hospitality properties throughout the Pacific Northwest. Hotels in Seattle, Portland, San Francisco, and recently acquired a resort chain in British Columbia. I'm looking to expand, and your firm's reputation for quality commercial development caught my attention." He brought up projections, property assessments, financial models. Elena watched her father's expression shift from suspicion to interest to barely concealed greed. "This is substantial," Jonathan said, scrolling through the numbers. $20 million in development capital for 3 projects, with revenue sharing structured at 60-40 in our favor. These terms are unusually generous. "I believe in partnering with the best. Your firm has the expertise I need. I have the capital you need. It's mutually beneficial." Dominic leaned back. "I also understand you are facing some challenges with your current political connections." Jonathan glanced at Elena, who kept her expression neutral. "My daughter mentioned you're aware of our situation with Senator Cole's campaign. I'm aware that political promises often fail to materialize into actual revenue. I prefer concrete agreements with clear deliverables." Dominic met Jonathan's eyes directly. "I also prefer partners who aren't entangled in campaigns that are likely to implode." "You think Adrian's campaign will fail?" "I think Adrian Cole has made enemies with people far more dangerous than political opponents. His financial practices are questionable at best. When that house of cards falls, everyone nearby will be investigated." Dominic shrugged. "I prefer to avoid that kind of scrutiny." Jonathan processed this. "What do you know about Cole's finances?" "Enough to stay far away from him, which is what I'd advise you to do as well." Dominic stood, leaving the tablet on the desk. "Review the proposal. My lawyers can have contracts ready within 48 hours if you're interested. But, Mr. Vance, I'll be direct. This offer expires in 1 week. After that, I'll find other partners." "That's not much time for due diligence." "I don't need much time. Either you want the opportunity or you don't." Dominic moved toward the door, then paused. "One more thing. I've heard rumors that Cole is planning to retaliate against your daughter for ending their engagement. If that happens, if he attempts to damage her reputation or your firm, he'll discover that some people don't respond well to threats." It was a clear warning, delivered with casual menace. Jonathan Vance was many things, but stupid wasn't one of them. He understood exactly what Dominic was offering, protection along with profit. "I appreciate the information," Jonathan said carefully. "And the proposal. I'll review it tonight." "Excellent. Elena, would you walk me out?" In the elevator, Dominic spoke quietly. "Your father will take the deal. Men like him always choose money over morality. He's not a bad person. I didn't say he was, but he's practical. By tomorrow, he'll have convinced himself that partnering with me is the smart business decision, regardless of any moral concerns." The elevator doors opened. "How are you feeling about tomorrow night?" "Nervous," Elena admitted, "but ready." "Good. Nerves keep you sharp." He handed her a small earpiece. "Wear this tomorrow. We'll guide you through every step." "What if something goes wrong?" "Then you improvise. You're smart enough." Dominic studied her face. "You're also strong enough. Don't doubt that." He left her standing in the lobby, her heart racing, the earpiece burning against her palm. That night, Elena's mother finally cornered her. Catherine Vance appeared at her apartment door at 7 p.m., perfectly coiffed and radiating controlled fury. "Explain yourself." Elena led her mother inside, knowing this confrontation was inevitable. Catherine swept through the apartment like a storm, her gaze cataloging everything. The trash bag containing the white engagement party dress, The absence of wedding magazines that had been stacked on the coffee table, the closed laptop that held all of Elena's research on breaking and entering. Adrian called me. He says you're being irrational, that you've gotten some misguided idea that he's been unfaithful. Catherine turned to face her daughter. I told him you were simply stressed from wedding planning, that I would talk sense into you. He's been sleeping with Vanessa for 6 months, Mom. Catherine's expression didn't change. And? The casual dismissal hit Elena like a physical blow. And? That's all you have to say? Darling, you cannot be this naive. Men like Adrian, men with power and ambition, they have certain needs. As long as he's discreet, as long as he doesn't embarrass you publicly, what difference does it make? It makes every difference. No, it doesn't. Catherine sat down, smoothing her skirt with practiced precision. Your role is to be his wife, to support his career, to provide stability and respectability. Love is a pleasant fiction, we tell ourselves, but marriage at our level is about so much more. You're saying I should marry him knowing he'll cheat. I'm saying you should marry him knowing that fidelity is less important than the life you'll build together. The influence, the prestige, the legacy. Catherine's voice softened. Elena, I know you think I've been weak, staying with your father despite his indiscretions, but I chose my life with full knowledge of what it would entail. I chose power over passion, security over romance, and I've never regretted it. I would regret it every single day. Then you're more foolish than I thought. Catherine stood. If you end this engagement, you will be ruined. No one at our level will want you. You'll be seen as unstable, unable to handle the pressures of political life. Your father's business will suffer. Your reputation will never recover. I don't care. You should, because the alternative to marrying Adrian is what, exactly? Becoming a spinster? Working some meaningless job? Living an ordinary life with ordinary people? Catherine's contempt was palpable. You were raised for greatness, Elena. Don't throw it away because of some childish notion of romantic love. Elena looked at her mother, this woman who had perfected the art of strategic suffering, who had sacrificed her dignity for decades in exchange for a lifestyle she valued more than herself. I'm not throwing away greatness, Mom. I'm just redefining what that means. Catherine's laugh was bitter. You have no idea what you're doing. You think you can just walk away from Adrian and find something better? You're 28 years old, Elena. Your best years for catching an appropriate husband are behind you. This is your last chance at the life you were meant to have. Maybe I was meant for a different life entirely. Don't be ridiculous. You're a Vance. We don't have different lives. We have duty, obligation, and the intelligence to play the game correctly. Catherine moved toward the door. You have until the engagement party to come to your senses. After that, I wash my hands of whatever consequences you face. She left in a cloud of expensive perfume and disappointed expectations. Elena stood alone in her apartment and felt the final thread connecting her to her old life snap. Her mother had made her a choice decades ago: comfort over authenticity, status over self. Elena refused to make the same mistake. The encrypted phone buzzed. Everything set for tomorrow? Elena responded, Yes. Remember, 9:45, staff elevator, 4 minutes in the corridor. We'll be with you the whole time. Understood. She deleted the messages and went to her closet. The gala required formal attire, something elegant enough to fit the occasion but practical enough to move quickly. She selected a midnight blue dress with a structured bodice and a skirt that wouldn't restrict her movement. Heels high enough to be appropriate but low enough to run in if necessary. Planning her outfit for committing a federal crime felt surreal. The next day passed in a blur of preparation and anxiety. Her father called at noon to say he was accepting Dominic's proposal, that his lawyers were already drafting contracts. Elena felt a grim satisfaction. At least her family wouldn't suffer financially when everything fell apart. At 6 p.m., she began getting ready for the gala. Her hands were steady as she applied makeup, styled her hair, fastened her jewelry. She looked like the Elena Vance everyone expected, poised, elegant, perfectly controlled. But the woman in the mirror had a USB drive in her clutch and an earpiece hidden in her hair, and her heart beat with purpose instead of decoration. The gala was being held at the Fairmont Olympic Hotel, a showcase of Seattle's elite gathering to throw money at Adrian's Senate campaign. Elena arrived at 7:30, alone, Her absence of an escort immediately noted by the society reporters clustered near the entrance. "Ms. Vance, where's Senator Cole?" "He's networking inside. You know how these events are, never a moment to rest." She smiled graciously and moved past them. The ballroom was exactly as ostentatious as she'd expected. Crystal chandeliers, champagne towers, 500 people dressed in their finest, all pretending their donations were about civic duty rather than buying influence. Adrian found her within minutes, his expression tight with barely controlled anger. "Where the hell have you been? You didn't return any of my calls." "I've been busy." He gripped her elbow, his fingers digging in hard enough to bruise. "We need to talk, privately." "Not here, Adrian. We're in public." "I don't give a damn. You've been—" He stopped, his campaign smile snapping into place as a donor approached. "Senator Harrison, thank you so much for coming. Elena, you remember Senator Harrison?" She played her role perfectly, smiling and charming and utterly appropriate. But when Harrison moved on, Adrian's mask dropped again. "My office, 10 minutes. "Fine." He stalked away, and Elena checked her watch. 9:30. 15 minutes until the guard shift change. She moved through the crowd, accepting champagne she didn't drink, making small talk with people whose names she'd forget by morning. At 9:40, she slipped away from a conversation about tax policy and headed for the staff elevator. The hotel hallways were quieter here, designed for service workers rather than guests. She pressed the button for the third floor. The earpiece crackled to life. "We see you. Elevator cameras are looped. When you reach the third floor, turn left, third door on the right leads to the campaign offices." Elena's heart hammered. "Understood." The elevator climbed. Each floor felt like an eternity. When the doors finally opened, she stepped out into a carpeted hallway lined with photographs of Adrian at various campaign events. His smile beamed down at her from a dozen frames, each one a reminder of the lies she'd been living. Left, then straight. "You have 4 minutes starting now." She moved quickly but didn't run. Running would look suspicious if anyone saw her. The hallway was empty, silent except for her heels against carpet. 3 doors down, she used her key card, the one Adrian had given her months ago for emergencies, and entered the campaign office. Adrian's personal office was at the back, his name on a frosted glass door. She tried the handle. Locked. "Use the code. 4729. How did they know his code? Elena didn't question it, just punched in the numbers. The lock clicked. She was inside. His office was aggressively masculine, dark wood, leather chairs, photographs of Adrian with political luminaries. His desk was massive, covered with files and papers, and the careful construction of a man who needed everyone to see how important he was. Bottom drawer left side under the financial files. Elena pulled out the USB drive and opened the drawer. Files exactly as predicted. She slid the drive underneath them, positioning it where it would be found, but not obviously planted. "Done. Get out. You have 90 seconds before the loop ends." She closed the drawer, locked the office, and walked back toward the elevator. Her legs felt like water. Her hands shook. Any moment she expected someone to grab her, to demand what she'd been doing, but the hallway remained empty. "Elevator arriving. Good work." The doors opened and Elena stepped inside, her heart still racing. When she reached the first floor and emerged back into the hotel's public spaces, she allowed herself one long breath. She'd done it. "Miss Vance?" Elena turned to find Adrian's campaign manager, Richard Sterling, watching her with narrow eyes. He was a weasel of a man, perpetually suspicious, exactly the kind of person who installed monitoring software on phones. "Mr. Sterling, enjoying the gala?" "Where were you just now?" "Ladies' room. Why? You were gone for 15 minutes. "Are you timing my bathroom breaks, Richard? That seems excessive even for you." She smiled coldly. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I should find Adrian. He wanted to speak with me." She brushed past Sterling and returned to the ballroom, where Adrian was holding court with a group of donors. When he saw her, he excused himself and pulled her aside. "We need to end this tantrum, Elena. Whatever you think I did, you slept with my best friend for 6 months. That's not something I think you did. That's something you admitted to doing." I explained that. It was a mistake. One I'm willing to put behind us if you'll just... "I'm ending our engagement, Adrian. Publicly. Tomorrow." His face went white, then red. "You wouldn't dare. Watch me. If you do this, I will destroy you. Your reputation, your family, everything you care about. I will make sure you never work, never marry, never have a moment of peace for the rest of your life." Elena looked at him. This man she'd almost married, this man who had never seen her as anything but a useful accessory, and felt nothing but contempt. "Threaten me all you want. I'm done being afraid of you." She walked away, leaving him standing alone, and felt power surge through her veins. She'd planted evidence that would trigger a federal investigation. She'd secured her family's financial future. She'd taken the first real step toward destroying the man who'd treated her like property. And it felt glorious. The rest of the gala passed in a haze. Elena smiled, networked, played her role one last time. At 11, she claimed a headache and left, ignoring Adrian's attempts to stop her. In her car, the encrypted phone buzzed. "Perfect execution. The drive is in place. We'll make sure it's discovered within the week." Elena drove home through Seattle's streets that seemed to sparkle with possibility. When she reached her apartment, she found a package waiting. No return address, just her name. Inside was a burner phone and a note in Dominic's handwriting. "Well done. The game is just beginning." She burned the note and kept the phone. That night, Elena slept deeply for the first time in months. When she woke, sunlight streamed through her windows, and she felt lighter than she had in years. Her regular phone showed 37 missed calls from Adrian, 23 from her mother, and 12 from Richard Sterling. She ignored them all. Instead, she composed a single text message to Adrian from her regular phone, the one she knew he was monitoring. "The engagement is over. Don't contact me again." Then she posted a simple statement to her social media. "After careful consideration, Adrian Cole and I have decided to end our engagement. I wish him well in his future endeavors." The post went live at 9 a.m. on a Saturday morning. By 9:15, her phone was exploding with calls, texts, messages from reporters, society columnists, political insiders. By 9:30, Adrian's campaign had released a statement calling her unstable and claiming the decision was mutual. By 10 a.m., an anonymous source had sent a tip to the Seattle Times about financial irregularities in Adrian Cole's campaign, suggesting they look into a USB drive that might be found in his office. Elena watched it all unfold from her apartment, feeling like a conductor watching her orchestra perform a symphony of destruction. The war had begun, and she was winning. The first week after the engagement announcement exploded like a grenade in Seattle's social circles. Elena watched from her apartment as the carefully constructed life she'd abandoned burned to ash, and felt nothing but cold satisfaction. Adrian's campaign went into damage control immediately. His team released statements painting Elena as emotionally unstable, unable to handle the pressures of political life, a society princess who'd gotten cold feet when faced with real responsibility. The narrative was predictable, calculated to make her look weak while positioning Adrian as the victim of a woman's irrationality. But Elena had been preparing for this. On Monday morning, she released the recording. Not the entire conversation from that night in Adrian's penthouse, just carefully selected portions. His admission of the affair, his casual dismissal of their relationship as political strategy, his threat to destroy her reputation if she didn't comply. She gave it to 3 journalists simultaneously, all of whom had been waiting for exactly this kind of ammunition. By noon, the story had shifted. Adrian Cole wasn't the victim of a hysterical woman. He was an unfaithful politician who'd tried to manipulate his fiancé into accepting his infidelity for the sake of his campaign. Religious conservatives, his core base, turned on him like wolves. Elena's mother called 17 times that day. She didn't answer. Her father called once, his voice tight with a mixture of anger and grudging respect. "You're playing a dangerous game, Elena. I learned from the best, Dad. This won't just hurt Adrian, it'll hurt you too. Society doesn't forgive women who air dirty laundry publicly. I don't want society's forgiveness. I want Adrian destroyed." Jonathan Vance was silent for a long moment. "Dominic Moretti called me this morning. He's accelerating our contract timeline. We're signing papers tomorrow." "Good. Elena, what exactly is your relationship with Moretti?" "He's a business partner, nothing more." "Bullshit. Men like him don't offer $20 million in development capital without expecting something in return. He's getting what he wants. Access to your development expertise and a legitimate business front for some of his investments. What I get in return is none of your concern." Her father laughed, sharp and bitter. "You're more like me than I thought. Your mother raised you to be decorative and docile, but underneath you're a Vance, ruthless when necessary." "Is that a compliment?" "It's an observation. Be careful, Elena. Men like Moretti don't play by the rules you were raised with. If you're using him for revenge, make sure you don't become collateral damage." He hung up before she could respond. That afternoon, the encrypted phone buzzed. "Warehouse on Harbor Island, 8 p.m. Come alone." Elena drove through industrial sprawl as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of blood and fire. The warehouse was exactly what she expected: concrete and steel, isolated, the kind of place where illegal business happened far from curious eyes. Dominic was waiting inside, leaning against a black SUV, his shirt sleeves rolled up despite the cold. Behind him, 3 men worked on something she couldn't quite see. "You've made quite the splash," he said as she approached. The recording was a nice touch. It was necessary. Adrian's team was controlling the narrative. "And now you're controlling it. Well done." He gestured for her to follow him deeper into the warehouse. "Though you've also made yourself a target. Adrian's campaign manager has connections to some unpleasant people. They're not happy about the damage you've caused." "Richard Sterling? He's a political operative, not a gangster. Sterling works with everyone who can help his candidates win. That includes people who solve problems with violence instead of press releases." Dominic stopped in front of a table covered with photographs. "These are the men Sterling has contacted in the past 72 hours. Recognize any of them?" Elena studied the surveillance photos. Hard faces, prison tattoos, the unmistakable aura of violence. "No." "Good. That means they haven't approached you yet." Dominic pulled out one particular photograph. "This is Marcus Webb, former Special Forces, now freelance security contractor. Translation: he hurts people for money. Sterling hired him 2 days ago." Fear, cold and sharp, slid down Elena's spine. "To do what?" "We're not sure yet. Could be surveillance, intimidation, or worse. But Sterling doesn't hire men like Webb for their conversational skills." "So what do I do?" "You let me handle it." Dominic's voice was flat, final. "Webb and his team are being monitored. If they move against you, they'll be dealt with before they get close." "Dealt with how?" He met her eyes directly. "Do you really want to know?" Elena thought about the question. A week ago, she would have demanded details, insisted on understanding every aspect of her protection. But that was before she'd committed federal crimes, before she'd weaponized recordings and destroyed a political career, before she'd stepped fully into the shadow world. "No," she said quietly. "I don't." Smart. Dominic moved to another table, this one covered with financial documents. The USB drive was discovered this morning. Federal investigators executed a search warrant on Adrian's campaign headquarters at 6 a.m. They found exactly what we wanted them to find. "How long before he's indicted?" 3 months, maybe 4. Federal investigations move slowly. But the damage is already done. Donors are pulling out, endorsements are being rescinded, his poll numbers are in freefall. Dominic smiled. "He's finished, Elena. Even if he avoids prison, his political career is over." She should have felt triumphant, should have felt vindicated. Instead, she felt strangely hollow. "Why do you look disappointed?" Dominic asked. "I'm not disappointed. I'm just realizing that destroying Adrian doesn't fix anything. It doesn't change what he did. It doesn't undo the years I wasted being who he needed me to be. Revenge never fixes anything. It just balances the scales." He handed her a glass of whiskey, from where she hadn't seen. "But it's still necessary." They drank in silence for a moment, surrounded by evidence of surveillance and violence, 2 people who'd chosen to operate in shadows rather than accept the cruelties of light. "What happens now?" Elena asked. "Now we wait for Adrian to make his next move. Men like him don't accept defeat gracefully. He'll try to retaliate, to hurt you the way you've hurt him." Dominic's expression hardened. "And when he does, we'll end him permanently." "Permanently?" "I don't mean murder, Elena. I mean complete destruction. Financial ruin, social exile, legal consequences that follow him for the rest of his life. When we're done, Adrian Cole won't just be a failed politician. He'll be a cautionary tale." The burner phone in Elena's purse buzzed. Unknown number. She looked at Dominic, who nodded. Ms. Vance, this is Detective Sarah Chen with Seattle PD. I need you to come down to the station. We have some questions about your relationship with Adrian Cole. Elena's blood went cold. Am I being accused of something? Not at this time. But we're investigating allegations of blackmail and extortion related to the recording you released. Senator Cole's attorney has filed a complaint. I'll be there tomorrow morning with my lawyer. She hung up and looked at Dominic. Adrian's trying to have me arrested for releasing the recording. Of course he is. It's the only card he has left to play. Dominic pulled out his phone and made a call. Marcus, I need you to prepare a legal defense package for Elena Vance. Blackmail allegations, likely bullshit, but treat it seriously. She'll be at Seattle PD tomorrow morning at 9. He listened for a moment. Good. Bill it to my account. You have a lawyer on retainer? Elena asked when he hung up. I have several. Marcus Chen specializes in defending people who've been accused of crimes by powerful men trying to silence them. He's very good at making those charges disappear. Chen, is he related to the detective who called me? Her brother, which is probably why she gave you advance warning instead of just showing up at your door. Dominic's smile was sharp. You're starting to understand how this world works, Elena. Connections, favors, strategic alliances, everything is transactional. Even this? Us? Especially this. He stepped closer, his presence overwhelming in its intensity. I'm helping you destroy Adrian because it serves my interests. You're accepting my help because you need resources you don't have. Neither of us is doing this out of altruism. Then what happens when our interests no longer align? That depends on whether you prove yourself valuable beyond this immediate situation. Dominic reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, the gesture unexpectedly intimate. You're smart, ruthless, and learning quickly. Those are rare qualities. If you continue developing them, we might find our interests align for a very long time. Elena's heart hammered in her chest. The air between them felt charged, dangerous. And if I don't? Then our arrangement ends and we go our separate ways. No hard feelings, no complications. His hand dropped away. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think you're just getting started. Before Elena could respond, one of Dominic's men approached, his expression urgent. Boss, we have a problem. Webb's team is moving. They just left a warehouse in Georgetown, 3 vehicles heading north. Dominic's entire demeanor changed, his casual charm replaced by cold calculation. North toward where? Can't tell yet, but they're armed and moving fast. Get Elena out of here. Now. Dominic turned to her. Go home. Lock your doors. Don't answer for anyone you don't recognize. I'll have security posted outside your building within the hour. What's happening? Webb might be coming for you, or he might be going after someone else connected to this situation. Either way, you need to be somewhere secure. He gripped her shoulders. Trust me, Elena. Go home and wait for my call. And wait. She wanted to argue, to demand more information, to insist on being part of whatever was happening. But the look in Dominic's eyes stopped her. This wasn't a negotiation. This was a direct order from a man who knew how to handle violence. Elena drove home through city streets that suddenly felt hostile, every car a potential threat, every shadow hiding danger. When she reached her apartment building, 2 men in dark suits were already positioned outside. Ms. Vance? We're with Mr. Moretti. We'll be here all night. She nodded and went inside, locking every door and window, her hands shaking. This was real. Not political maneuvering or social games, but actual physical danger. People who solved problems with violence instead of strategy. What had she gotten herself into? Hours passed. Elena sat in her dark apartment, watching the street below, waiting for something terrible to happen. At midnight, the encrypted phone rang. It's handled, Dominic said without preamble. What happened? Webb and his team weren't coming for you. They were going after Vanessa. Elena's stomach dropped. Why Vanessa? Adrian figured out she's the weak link. She's the one who can testify about the affair, provide details that corroborate your recording. Sterling hired Webb to convince her to recant her story. Convince how? However necessary, but they didn't get to her. My people intercepted them 3 blocks from her apartment. Dominic's voice was flat, emotionless. Webb and his team are currently being held in a location where they can think about their career choices. Vanessa has been moved to a safe house. Is she okay? She's terrified, but unharmed. I've explained to her that Adrian is more dangerous than she realized, that staying silent will get her killed. She's agreed to cooperate with federal investigators in exchange for protection. Elena closed her eyes, processing this. You're using her. I'm keeping her alive and giving her a chance to do the right thing. That's more than Adrian was offering. Dominic paused. Elena, this is what I meant when I said things would get dangerous. Adrian is desperate. Desperate men do terrible things. What happens to Webb? He'll be released tomorrow with a message for Sterling. Stop targeting people connected to this situation, or the consequences will be severe. And if Sterling doesn't listen, then the consequences will be severe. Dominic's tone made it clear the conversation was over. Get some sleep. Tomorrow you have your meeting with Detective Chen. Play it straight. You released a recording of a private conversation where your ex-fiancé admitted to infidelity and threatened you. That's not blackmail. That's self-defense against a smear campaign. Okay. And Elena? You did well tonight. Staying calm, following instructions. Keep doing that, and you'll survive this. He hung up. Elena stood at her window, looking out at the security team below, and wondered who she was becoming. A week ago, she'd been horrified by the idea of breaking into an office. Now she was accepting that men had been intercepted and held captive to protect her interests, and she felt nothing but grim satisfaction. The transformation was complete. She wasn't the woman who'd walked into Adrian's penthouse expecting champagne. She was someone harder, colder, more dangerous, and she was still evolving. The meeting with Detective Chen went exactly as Dominic had predicted. The detective asked careful questions, reviewed the recording, and ultimately concluded that Elena had broken no laws. Washington was a two-party consent state for recordings, but exceptions existed when the person recording was party to the conversation and had reasonable belief they were being threatened. Adrian's blackmail complaint was dismissed by noon, but Adrian wasn't done fighting. That afternoon, Elena's father called, his voice tight with controlled fury. Someone leaked false information to our investors claiming Vance Development is under investigation for fraud. 3 major partners just pulled their funding. We're hemorrhaging money. Let me guess. The leak came from someone connected to Adrian's campaign. Richard Sterling's fingerprints are all over this. The bastard is trying to destroy our firm because he can't touch you directly. Her father's breathing was harsh. I'm meeting with Moretti in an hour. He says he can help, but Elena, this is getting out of control. It's been out of control since the moment I found Adrian with Vanessa. We're just acknowledging it now. People could get hurt, not just reputations, actual physical harm. Are you prepared for that? Elena thought of Vanessa in a safe house, of Webb and his team being held somewhere, of security guards outside her apartment every night. I'm prepared for whatever's necessary. Her father was quiet for a long moment. You've changed. Yes. I'm not sure if I'm proud or terrified. Be both, Elena said, and hung up. That evening, Dominic appeared at her apartment without warning, bypassing building security like it didn't exist. Elena opened the door to find him standing there, his expression grim. We need to talk. She let him in, noting the tension in his shoulders, the way his eyes scanned her apartment like he was cataloging exits and vulnerabilities. Adrian made another move today, Dominic said. He's hired private investigators to dig into your past, looking for anything he can use against you. Affairs, drug use, financial impropriety, anything to discredit you before the federal investigation gains momentum. He won't find anything. I've been disgustingly responsible my entire life. I know, which is why he's also investigating me. Dominic moved to her window, looking out at the city. He's trying to prove you're connected to organized crime, that you've been manipulated by dangerous people, that you can't be trusted as a witness. Are you organized crime? He turned to face her. My businesses operate in gray areas. Some of what I do is illegal. Most of it is simply unregulated. I have connections to organizations that law enforcement considers criminal. Does that bother you? A month ago, it would have terrified me. Now? Elena shook her head. Now I'm just grateful you're on my side. That's what I need to talk to you about. Being on your side has put me in Adrian's crosshairs. His investigators are looking into my holdings, my associates, my financial structures. If they find the right things, they could cause serious problems for my operations. Fear spiked through her. Are you saying you want to end our arrangement? No, I'm saying we need to change it. Dominic crossed the room to stand in front of her. Adrian is connecting us publicly, which means any investigation into you will include me and vice versa. We can fight that, waste energy maintaining the fiction that we're not connected, or we can embrace it. Embrace it how? Marry me. Elena's breath caught. What? Marry me. Not for love, not for romance, for protection. Spousal privilege means you can't be forced to testify against me, and I can't be forced to testify against you. Any investigations into our connection become legally murky. And more importantly, it sends a message to Adrian and everyone like him that you're under my protection permanently. You want a fake marriage? I want a strategic alliance formalized in a way that provides legal protection for both of us. Dominic's voice was clinical, businesslike. Your family's firm needs the connections I provide. My businesses benefit from the legitimacy your family's reputation offers. Together, we're stronger than apart. Elena's mind raced. This is insane. This is practical. You've already committed to destroying Adrian. You've already accepted my help and my protection. Marriage is just the next logical step. Marriage is supposed to be about love. Is it? You were willing to marry Adrian for political advantage. At least I'm being honest about what this is. A transaction that benefits us both. Dominic stepped closer. I won't pretend to love you, Elena, but I will protect you, support your interests, and ensure you have the power to never be vulnerable again. That's more than most marriages offer. She should say no, should refuse this insane proposal and find another way to handle Adrian's retaliation. But the cold, calculating part of her that had been growing stronger every day saw the logic. What would this marriage look like? Publicly, we'd present as a couple, attend events together, live together, maintain the appearance of a normal relationship. Privately, we'd have separate lives, no expectations of fidelity or romance, just mutual protection and strategic cooperation. And when we no longer need each other? We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But Elena, think carefully. Adrian is escalating. He's hired investigators, sent violent men after witnesses, destroyed your family's business relationships. He's not going to stop until you're completely ruined or he's completely destroyed. Marrying me puts you beyond his reach permanently. Elena walked to the window, looking out at Seattle's glittering skyline. 24 hours ago, she'd been defending herself against blackmail charges. Now she was being offered marriage as a business transaction. When would this happen? As soon as possible. Next week, ideally. Small ceremony, immediate legal documentation. We'll frame it as a whirlwind romance. You left Adrian, found someone who actually values you, fell in love quickly. The society pages will eat it up. My mother will have a stroke. Your mother will accept it because the alternative is watching your family's business collapse. And you end up destroyed by Adrian's revenge campaign. Dominic moved to stand beside her. I know this isn't what you imagined for your life, but nothing about the past month has been what you imagined, and you've adapted. You can adapt to this too. Elena looked at their reflections in the window, her still clinging to the last fragments of who she used to be, and him, comfortable in the shadows he'd always inhabited. If I say yes, I need to know everything. What you do, who you work with, what I'm really becoming part of. Fair enough. Dominic pulled out his phone and showed her documents, organizational charts, financial statements. His empire was vast. Legitimate hospitality businesses that laundered money from illegal operations, construction projects that served as fronts for smuggling, political connections that protected his interests from law enforcement scrutiny. It should have horrified her. Instead, Elena felt a strange sense of recognition. This was just power operating without the polite fiction of legality. Her father's business dealings had always skirted ethical lines. Adrian's campaign had been funded by barely legal contributions. The only difference was that Dominic didn't pretend otherwise. One condition, she said finally. What? When Adrian falls, and he will fall, I want to be there to see it. I want him to know it was me who destroyed him. Dominic smiled. Done. Anything else? I I want a real partnership, not you making decisions and me following orders. If we're doing this, I want equal say in how we handle threats and opportunities. You'll have it, though you'll need to learn how my world operates before your input is useful. Then teach me. He extended his hand. Do we have a deal? Elena looked at his hand, calloused and strong, offering her protection and power and a life that bore no resemblance to the one she'd been raised for. She thought of her mother's warning about ruining her reputation, her father's concerns about dangerous games, the society circles that would exile her for this choice. None of it mattered anymore. She took his hand. We have a deal. They shook on it, and Elena felt the last connection to her old life sever. She'd walked into Adrian's penthouse expecting a celebration. She'd walked out planning revenge. And now, standing in her apartment with a man who operated in shadows, she was agreeing to marriage as a weapon. The transformation was complete. When do we tell people? She asked. Tomorrow. I'll have my lawyers draw up a prenuptial agreement that protects both our interests. We'll announce the engagement immediately, marry within the week. Dominic's expression turned serious. Elena, once we do this, there's no going back. You'll be connected to me permanently, even if we eventually divorce. Are you absolutely certain? She thought of Adrian's face when he'd threatened her, thought of years spent being perfect and powerless, thought of the woman she'd become in the past month, harder, colder, more dangerous, and infinitely more free. I'm certain, she said. Then welcome to the family, future Mrs. Moretti. He raised an imaginary glass. To strategic alliances. To survival, Elena corrected. That too. He left shortly after, promising to return in the morning with contracts and plans. Elena stood alone in her apartment, her reflection in the window showing a stranger, a woman who'd agreed to marry a crime lord to protect herself from a corrupt politician. Her phone buzzed, her mother calling for the 30th time that week. Elena answered. Hello, Mother. Elena, thank heavens. I've been trying to reach you for days. We need to discuss damage control. Adrian's team is willing to take you back if you make a public apology. I'm getting married. Silence. Married? To whom? Dominic Moretti. We're announcing it tomorrow. Dominic Moretti? The man who owns those hotels? Elena, you barely know him. You can't possibly… It's done, Mother. I'm marrying him next week. Have you lost your mind? What will people say? You ended your engagement to a senator and immediately took up with some hotel magnate no one knows anything about? The scandal will be nothing compared to what Adrian is planning. Dominic can protect me. Adrian can't hurt me if I'm married to someone with more power than him. Her mother's voice turned icy. So this is a transaction, just like Adrian, just with different terms. Yes, except Dominic is honest about it. You're making a terrible mistake. Maybe, but it's my mistake to make. Elena looked at her reflection one more time. I have to go, Mother. I'll send you an invitation to the wedding. She hung up before her mother could respond. That night, Elena barely slept. Her mind raced with possibilities, consequences, the magnitude of what she'd agreed to. By morning, she'd convinced herself it was insane. By the time Dominic arrived with contracts and lawyers, she'd convinced herself it was necessary. They signed papers in her apartment, witnessed by attorneys who asked no questions and saw nothing unusual about a marriage agreement that read more like a corporate merger. At noon, they released a statement to the press. Elena Vance and Dominic Moretti were engaged, planning a private ceremony the following week, deeply in love despite the whirlwind nature of their relationship. By 1 p.m., the story had exploded across every society page and gossip column in Seattle. By 2 p.m., Adrian's campaign manager had released a statement calling Elena's engagement suspicious and demanding investigation into Dominic Moretti's business practices. By 3 p.m., federal investigators had announced they were expanding their probe into Adrian's campaign finances based on new witness testimony from Vanessa Hartley. The war was entering its final phase, and Elena Vance was no longer fighting alone. The wedding took place on a Friday afternoon in a private estate overlooking Puget Sound, the Seattle skyline rising in the distance like a promise or a threat, depending on perspective. 50 guests attended, Dominic's associates, Elena's father, and a handful of family members who'd chosen pragmatism over moral outrage, business partners who understood power when they saw it. Catherine Vance sat in the front row wearing black like she was attending a funeral. In a way, she was. The daughter she'd raised to be the perfect political wife was marrying a man whose business empire existed in the shadows and doing it with clear eyes and no apologies. Elena wore ivory silk, simple and elegant, her hair swept up to reveal the diamond necklace Dominic had given her that morning, not as a romantic gesture, but as a symbol of the protection she now carried. The ceremony was brief, the vows traditional but hollow. Two people making promises they both understood were strategic rather than emotional. When Dominic kissed her, it was chaste, appropriate for the audience watching. But his hand on her waist was firm, possessive, a clear message to everyone present that Elena Vance belonged to him now, and anyone who threatened her would face consequences. After the ceremony, during the reception, Jonathan Vance pulled his daughter aside. "You know what you've done, don't you? You've traded one cage for another." Elena sipped champagne and looked at her father with clear eyes. "The difference is, I chose this cage, and I hold the key." "You think Moretti will let you walk away when this is over?" "I think Dominic and I understand each other in a way Adrian and I never did. We're partners, not prisoner and warden." She set down her glass. "Besides, who says I want to walk away?" Her father studied her face, seeing something there that made him step back slightly. "You've changed. You're not the girl I raised." "No, I'm not. That girl would have married Adrian and spent 40 years being miserable like Mom. I'm someone different now, someone stronger. Or someone more lost," Jonathan said quietly. "I hope you know what you're doing, Elena." "So do I, Dad. So do I." Across the room, Dominic was speaking with associates. His posture relaxed, but his eyes constantly moving, cataloging threats and opportunities. He caught Elena's gaze and nodded slightly, a silent question. She nodded back. They were performing well, playing their roles perfectly. The reception ended at sunset. Guests departed with expensive party favors and the knowledge that they'd witnessed something significant. Elena and Dominic were driven to his penthouse, now their penthouse, in a car with bulletproof glass and security following in 3 separate vehicles. Inside the elevator, alone for the first time as husband and wife, the performance dropped away. "That went well," Dominic said, loosening his tie. "Your associates seemed satisfied with the arrangement." "They were. Having a Vance connected to our operations gives us legitimacy we've been lacking. Your father's development firm is already proving useful for laundering construction contracts." Elena should have been disturbed by the casual mention of money laundering. Instead, she filed the information away, learning how Dominic's empire functioned. What happens now? Now we wait. Adrian's investigation is accelerating. Vanessa's testimony has opened new avenues for federal prosecutors. Within a month, maybe 2, he'll be indicted. Dominic led her into the penthouse. Stunning, expensive, and absolutely nothing like the carefully curated space she'd shared with Adrian. And when he falls, we'll make sure he knows exactly who pushed him. The penthouse had a guest suite prepared for Elena, respecting the boundaries of their arrangement. But that night, she didn't go to her separate room. Instead, she sat with Dominic in his study, drinking whiskey and learning about the empire she'd married into. He showed her everything. The legitimate businesses, hotels, restaurants, real estate holdings. The gray area operations, construction projects that moved money between legal and illegal enterprises. Shipping contracts that smuggled luxury goods past customs. Political contributions that bought influence and protection. And the fully illegal ventures, gambling operations, loan sharking networks, connections to organized crime families across 3 states. "This is what you've protected me with," Elena said, studying organizational charts that detailed a criminal empire. "This is what I'm part of now." "Yes." "Does it frighten you?" "It should, but mostly it just makes sense. Adrian's world wasn't that different. He just hid it behind political rhetoric and campaign finance law." She looked at Dominic. "At least you're honest about being a criminal." He laughed. "I prefer businessmen operating in unregulated markets." "Of course you do." They worked late into the night, Dominic teaching her the intricacies of his operations, Elena asking sharp questions that impressed him. By the time she finally went to bed, the sun was rising over Seattle, painting the city gold. She was married to a crime lord, and she'd never felt more powerful in her life. The first month of marriage passed in a blur of strategic maneuvering and public performance. Elena and Dominic appeared together at charity galas, business dinners, society events. They played the role of newlyweds perfectly, touching casually, sharing private smiles, presenting a united front that made them untouchable. Behind closed doors, they worked. Dominic taught Elena how his world operated, the careful balance of violence and negotiation, the importance of reputation, the way power flowed through channels both legal and illegal. She learned quickly, her natural intelligence adapting to this new environment. In return, Elena brought her own skills. Her years in society had taught her to read people, to navigate social hierarchies, to present exactly the image that would serve her purposes. She became Dominic's secret weapon in negotiations, sitting silent and decorative while cataloging weaknesses, then reporting back with strategic insights. They were good together, frighteningly good. 6 weeks after the wedding, Adrian's world finally collapsed. The federal indictment came down on a Wednesday morning. 17 counts of campaign finance violations, money laundering, accepting illegal contributions from foreign nationals. The evidence was overwhelming, built on the USB drive Elena had planted, and Vanessa's testimony and months of investigation into financial networks Adrian had thought were untraceable. His arrest was broadcast on every news channel. Elena watched from Dominic's office, seeing Adrian in handcuffs, his perfect hair disheveled, his campaign smile replaced by genuine fear. "How does it feel?" Dominic asked, standing beside her. "Empty," Elena admitted. "I thought I'd feel triumphant. Instead, I just feel tired." "That's normal. Revenge is exhausting." He turned off the television. "But it's not finished yet. Adrian will make bail, hire expensive lawyers, try to fight this. We need to make sure he knows this isn't random bad luck. This is consequences for what he did to you." "How?" "By visiting him. By making sure he understands exactly who destroyed his life." Elena's pulse quickened. "When?" "Tomorrow. I've arranged it." Adrian made bail within 24 hours, his family's money buying temporary freedom. He'd retreated to his penthouse, the same one where Elena had discovered his betrayal, where this entire spiral had begun. Dominic's people had surveillance on the building. They knew when Adrian was alone, when security was minimal, when a visit could happen without witnesses. Elena dressed carefully that morning, a black dress, simple jewelry, her hair pulled back. She looked like she was going to a funeral. In a way, she was. Dominic went with her, along with 2 of his security team. They entered the building through a service entrance, avoiding cameras, moving like ghosts through spaces designed to keep them out. When they reached Adrian's penthouse, Dominic's man picked the lock in under 30 seconds. Adrian was sitting in his living room, surrounded by legal documents, whiskey glass in hand. When he saw them enter, his face went white. "Elena, how did you get in here?" "The same way I got into your office at the campaign headquarters. Did you really think locks would keep me out?" She moved further into the room, Dominic a silent presence behind her. "Hello, Adrian." He scrambled to his feet, looking between Elena and Dominic with dawning comprehension. You did this. The USB drive, the investigation, this was you." "Yes." "You destroyed my career, my entire life. Do you have any idea what you've done?" "I know exactly what I've done. I've given you consequences for treating me like property, for threatening to ruin me because I wouldn't accept your infidelity, for thinking you could control my life." Elena's voice was ice. "You told me I had nothing without you, that I was powerless. How does it feel to be wrong?" Adrian's hands shook. "The feds have frozen my accounts. My family has cut me off until the trial is over. My poll numbers are non-existent. I'm facing 20 years in prison." "Good." "Good?" "Elena, I loved you. You loved what I represented. Political advantage, social connections, a pretty accessory to make you look stable and trustworthy." She stepped closer. "You never loved me, Adrian. You don't even know who I am." "And he does?" Adrian pointed at Dominic. "You married a criminal, someone who operates outside the law, who hurts people for profit. You think that's better than what I offered?" Dominic doesn't pretend to be something he's not. He doesn't lie about his nature or try to control me with threats. Elena smiled, sharp and cold. "And he's taught me something valuable. Power doesn't require permission. It's taken." Adrian lunged toward her, rage overwhelming self-preservation. He didn't get within 3 feet before Dominic moved, slamming him against the wall with enough force to rattle picture frames. "Touch her and I'll break every bone in your hand," Dominic said quietly. Adrian struggled, then went still when he felt the knife against his ribs. "You can't kill me. I'm a federal suspect. My death would trigger investigations. I'm not going to kill you, Cole. That would be mercy." Dominic released him, stepping back. "I'm going to let you live. Let you face trial, prison, the complete destruction of everything you built. You're going to wake up every day knowing that a woman you underestimated took everything from you." "This isn't over," Adrian gasped. "I still have resources, friends, people who owe me favors." "No, you don't." Elena pulled out her phone and played a recording. Richard Sterling's voice filled the room, discussing how to intimidate witnesses, how to hire men for violence, how to destroy Elena's family business through false allegations. "Your campaign manager has been very cooperative with federal investigators. In exchange for immunity, he's testified about every illegal thing you've done for the past 5 years. Your friends have abandoned you, Adrian. You're alone." The color drained from Adrian's face. "Sterling turned on me? Everyone turns when the ship is sinking. You taught me that." Elena put her phone away. "We're done here. Enjoy your trial, Adrian. Enjoy prison. Enjoy knowing that the woman you thought was weak and controllable destroyed you completely." She turned and walked toward the door. Dominic followed, but paused at the threshold. "One more thing, Cole. If you ever speak Elena's name again, if you ever try to contact her or her family, if you so much as think about retaliation, I will make sure your time in prison is significantly worse than it needs to be. Do you understand?" Adrian didn't respond, just stared at them with hatred and broken pride. They left him there, alone with his legal documents and empty threats. In the elevator, Elena's hands started shaking. The adrenaline that had carried her through the confrontation was fading, replaced by something that felt suspiciously like grief. "Are you all right?" Dominic asked. "I don't know. I thought seeing him broken would make me happy. Instead, I just feel empty." "I know. I told you revenge doesn't fix anything." He put his arm around her shoulders, the gesture surprisingly gentle. "But it does balance the scales. He hurt you, and now he's facing consequences. That matters." "Does it?" "Yes, because if there are no consequences for cruelty, then cruel people win. You made sure he didn't win." They drove back to the penthouse in silence. When they arrived, Elena poured herself whiskey and stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows, watching Seattle spread out beneath her. Dominic joined her, his own glass in hand. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now you decide who you want to be. You've destroyed your enemy. You've secured your family's future. You've married into protection and power. The question is what you do with it." Elena thought about that. A month ago, she would have said she wanted her old life back. The society parties, the carefully maintained reputation, the safety of knowing exactly what was expected of her. But that life had been a cage, even if the bars were gilded. "I want to stay," she said quietly. "Stay? Here, with you. Not because I have to, but because I choose to." She turned to face him. "You've taught me more in 2 months than I learned in 28 years of being perfect. You've shown me what real power looks like. I don't want to go back to being decorative and powerless." Dominic studied her face. "Being with me means living in the shadows. It means accepting moral compromises. It means being connected to things that most people would find unforgivable." "I know." "It also means being constantly vigilant. My enemies become your enemies. My risks become your risks." "I know that too." Elena stepped closer. "But it also means being an equal partner, not a beautiful accessory. It means using my intelligence instead of hiding it. It means having actual power instead of borrowed influence." "You're serious about this. This isn't just gratitude or attachment born from shared trauma." "I'm completely serious." She met his eyes directly. "Teach me everything, Dominic. How your empire works, how to negotiate, how to handle threats. Make me your partner for real, not just on paper." He was quiet for a long moment, weighing her words against his own complicated feelings. Their marriage had started as pure strategy, but something had shifted during the past 2 months. She'd proven herself intelligent, ruthless when necessary, and surprisingly adaptable to his world. If I do this, if I bring you fully into my operations, there's no going back. You'll be complicit in everything. If we fall together. I understand. And our marriage stops being just strategic. It becomes real, not romantic necessarily, but real partnership with all the complexities that entails. That's what I want. Dominic set down his glass and took both her hands. Then welcome to the Empire, Elena Moretti. Let's see what kind of queen you become. They sealed the agreement with a kiss, not chaste like the wedding, but real, hungry, acknowledging the complicated attraction that had been building between them since that first night in his club. When they finally pulled apart, Elena was breathless. So that's what that feels like, she said. What? Choosing something for myself instead of accepting what's chosen for me. Dominic smiled. Get used to it. From now on, you make your own choices. The next 6 months transformed Elena completely. Dominic kept his promise, teaching her everything about his empire. She learned to read financial statements that hid illegal revenue streams, to negotiate with dangerous people, to present herself as both untouchable and utterly in control. She discovered she was good at it, frighteningly good. Her natural intelligence, honed by years of navigating society politics, adapted perfectly to navigating criminal enterprises. Her ability to read people made her invaluable in negotiations. Her carefully cultivated charm opened doors that violence couldn't. Elena became Dominic's partner in truth, not just in name. She attended meetings with his associates, offered strategic advice that proved sound, handled problems with a combination of intelligence and calculated ruthlessness that earned respect from people who'd initially dismissed her as Dominic's pretty wife. And slowly, surprisingly, their strategic marriage became something more. It happened gradually, shared late nights reviewing operations, inside jokes about the absurdity of their situation, moments of genuine understanding that had nothing to do with business advantage. Dominic started seeking her opinion not because it was strategically useful, but because he valued her perspective. Elena found herself looking forward to evenings with him, to the way his mind worked, to the rare smiles that appeared when he was genuinely amused. They never discussed it explicitly. But 6 months after their strategic wedding, when Dominic came to her room instead of his own, when she welcomed him without hesitation, they both understood that something fundamental had shifted. Their arrangement had become a relationship. Their partnership had become something that looked suspiciously like love, though neither of them was quite ready to use that word. Adrian's trial began 9 months after Elena's wedding. She attended every day, sitting in the gallery beside Dominic, watching the man who'd once controlled her life face the consequences of his choices. The evidence was overwhelming. Financial records, testimony from former associates, Vanessa's detailed account of the affair, and Adrian's casual corruption. His expensive lawyers tried every trick, but the prosecution had built an airtight case. On the final day, when the jury returned with guilty verdicts on all 17 counts, Adrian's eyes found Elena in the gallery. She met his gaze without flinching, without triumph, without anything but calm acknowledgement. This was justice, not revenge. He'd threatened to destroy her, and she'd ensured he destroyed himself instead. The judge sentenced him to 15 years in federal prison. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. "Miss Moretti, do you have any comment on the verdict?" Elena stood beside Dominic, composed and elegant, and spoke clearly. "I'm grateful that justice was served. Adrian Cole used his position of power to hurt people, to break laws, to threaten anyone who challenged him. Today, he learned that no one is above consequences. Do you feel responsible for his conviction?" "I feel responsible for speaking the truth. What the justice system did with that truth was their decision, not mine." Dominic's hand settled on her lower back, a gesture of support and possession. "That's all we have to say. Thank you." They walked away from the cameras, surrounded by security, leaving the circus behind. In the car, Elena finally allowed herself to relax. "How do you feel?" Dominic asked. "Free," she said honestly. "For the first time in my life, completely free." "No regrets?" "About destroying Adrian? No. About the choices I've made since? No. About who I've become?" She looked at him. "Definitely not." He took her hand, threading their fingers together. "Good, because I've grown rather attached to who you've become." Is that Dominic Moretti admitting to feelings? Don't spread it around. I have a reputation to maintain. Elena laughed, genuine and unguarded. Your secret is safe with me. They drove back to the penthouse, and Elena realized that somewhere along the way, it had stopped being Dominic's home and become theirs. Her books were on the shelves, her coffee preferences programmed into the machine, her opinions sought on everything from business decisions to which restaurant to order from. She'd built a life here, a strange, morally complicated, occasionally dangerous life, but unmistakably hers. That evening, Elena's father called. I watched the verdict. How are you holding up? I'm fine, Dad. Better than fine, actually. Moretti treating you well? Better than I expected. Jonathan Vance was quiet for a moment. Your mother and I are having dinner tomorrow. She'd like you to come. Both of you. It was an olive branch, Elena realized. Her mother's way of acknowledging that this marriage, however unconventional, was real. We'll be there. Good. Elena, I know I've been hard on you about the choices you've made, but watching you in that courtroom today, seeing the strength you've developed, I'm proud of you, even if I don't always understand you. Tears pricked her eyes. Thank you, Dad. That means more than you know. After she hung up, Dominic emerged from his study. Your parents want to have dinner? Yes, both of us, tomorrow night. Should I be worried? Probably, but you can handle my mother. You've negotiated with crime lords. Catherine Vance should be easy by comparison. Crime lords are predictable. Mothers are terrifying. Elena laughed and kissed him, still marveling at how natural it had become. You'll survive. And afterward, I have something I want to discuss with you. What? I've been reviewing our hospitality operations. I think we're missing opportunities in the luxury market. I want to propose an expansion, 3 new properties in emerging markets, focused on legitimate revenue streams that can help clean our operations overall. Dominic's smile was proud. You've been thinking strategically. You taught me well. She pulled out her tablet, showing him preliminary research, financial projections, market analysis. What do you think? He reviewed her work, his expression growing more impressed. This is solid, really solid. We should present it to the board next week. I was hoping you'd say that. They spent the evening refining the proposal, working side by side, occasionally disagreeing but always respecting each other's perspective. This, Elena thought, was what partnership was supposed to feel like. Not one person dominating and the other submitting, but 2 equals building something together. Later, lying in bed with Dominic's arm around her, Elena reflected on the journey that had brought her here. 3 months ago, she'd been a society princess on the verge of a perfect political marriage. Now she was married to a crime lord, helping run a criminal empire, and happier than she'd ever been. What are you thinking about? Dominic asked, his voice rough with approaching sleep. How strange life is. How everything I was taught to want turned out to be a cage, and how the thing I was taught to fear turned out to be freedom. Do you miss your old life at all? Not even a little. She turned to face him. Do you regret our arrangement? It stopped being an arrangement months ago. You know that. I know. But do you regret it becoming more? Dominic was quiet for a long moment. I've spent my entire life avoiding emotional attachments, keeping people at a distance, never letting anyone close enough to become a vulnerability. It's how I've survived. And now? Now I'm attached to you in ways that should terrify me. You've become my greatest vulnerability. He tucked her hair behind her ear. But also my greatest strength. So no, I don't regret it, even though it's complicated and dangerous and nothing like what either of us planned. Elena kissed him, pouring everything she felt into it. Gratitude, affection, the beginnings of something deeper that neither of them was quite ready to name. When they finally fell asleep, tangled together, Seattle glittered outside their windows, indifferent and eternal. 6 months later, Elena stood in front of a room full of Dominic's associates, hard men who'd spent years building an empire in the shadows, and presented her expansion proposal. She spoke with confidence, fielding questions with sharp intelligence, presenting financial data that proved her luxury hotel concept would generate significant legitimate revenue while providing perfect infrastructure for cleaning money from less legal operations. When she finished, the room was silent. Then the oldest associate, a man named Vincent, who'd known Dominic for 20 years, started clapping. Brilliant, he said. Absolutely brilliant. If anyone had told me 2 years ago that Jonathan Vance's Society Princess would be proposing the best business strategy we've heard in a decade, I would have laughed in their face. I'm not Jonathan Vance's Society Princess anymore, Elena said calmly. I'm Elena Moretti, and I'm just getting started. The room erupted in approval. Later, in the car heading home, Dominic took her hand. You impressed them. That's not easy to do. I impressed myself, Elena admitted. 6 months ago, I would have been terrified to speak in front of those men. Now I'm proposing multi-million-dollar expansions to their criminal empire. You've grown into your power. You helped me find it. No, Dominic corrected. It was always there. I just gave you permission to use it. Elena looked out at the city, her city now, in ways she'd never imagined. She'd come here a year ago thinking she knew exactly what her life would be. Senator's wife, political hostess, perfect and powerless. Instead, she'd become something else entirely. That night, for the first time, they said the words that had been building between them for months. I love you, Elena whispered in the darkness. I know that wasn't part of our arrangement, but I do. Dominic pulled her closer. I love you too, and you're right. It wasn't part of the arrangement. It's better. 3 years later, Elena stood on the terrace of their newest hotel, a luxury property in Vancouver that had been her vision from concept to completion. Entirely legitimate, massively profitable, and a perfect example of how criminal empires could evolve into something cleaner while maintaining their power. Dominic joined her, carrying champagne. The mayor is impressed. The business community is impressed. Even the federal agents who've been investigating me for years are grudgingly impressed. Good. That was the point. Show them we're more than what they expect. Elena accepted the champagne. How did the meeting with the Seattle City Council go? They've agreed to our development proposal for the waterfront project. Your father's firm will handle the construction, will manage the hospitality components, and the city gets a revitalized district. Dominic smiled. You've made us legitimate, Elena, without sacrificing our power. We made us legitimate, together. They toasted to their success, to their empire, to the unlikely partnership that had become an unshakable marriage. Below them, Vancouver sparkled like Seattle had that night when everything changed. Elena thought about the woman she'd been, perfectly groomed, perfectly controlled, perfectly miserable, and the woman she'd become, powerful, dangerous, and finally, completely free. Any regrets? Dominic asked, echoing the question he'd posed years ago. Not a single one. Not even about the methods we used? Elena considered this honestly. We destroyed a corrupt politician who would have hurt more people if left unchecked. We built a life together based on honesty instead of convenient lies. We created something that gives us both power and purpose. She met his eyes. No regrets. He kissed her, and it still felt like that first real kiss years ago, choosing something for herself instead of accepting what was chosen for her. When they pulled apart, Elena looked out at the city below and thought about the other Elena, the one who'd walked into a penthouse expecting champagne and romance and found betrayal instead. That woman would have been horrified by who she'd become. Married to a criminal, complicit in illegal operations, comfortable with moral compromises that would have destroyed her old self. But that woman had been half alive, playing a role written by other people. This Elena, the one standing on a terrace in a hotel she'd built, beside a man who'd helped her discover her own power, this Elena was fully alive. And in a city ruled by shadows, one truth had become undeniable. The devil hadn't just won. He'd crowned his queen, and together they ruled with intelligence, strategy, and the unshakable certainty that they'd built something worth having. Not perfect, not simple, but completely and utterly theirs. Elena Moretti smiled at the night sky, raised her champagne glass one more time, and silently thanked the version of herself who'd had the courage to walk away from everything safe and choose power instead. The game had changed, the players had evolved, and the woman who'd once been invisible behind a man's shadow now stood in her own light, casting shadows of her own. Perfect.